Hello class, today what I'm going to be doing is going over the idle game. This is going to be my first attempt at a speed run. So far what we got is, and these are might be updated, but I'm taking a look at these 6 Java files. I'm going to be combining them all into one and making it work. Realize fence and idle game already has some of these combined, but we'll change that. So my first one that I'm going to start with is the fence and idle game, which it already does have stuff in there, so I probably need to remove that, but that's okay. So let's take a look at what it does, because this is an example. So if I click on this red box, the text turns green. If I click away, the green text disappears. So I basically have a button and a moving button that if I click, nothing happens. And I also have a timer on top where it moves, so I have the thread running in the background. What we need to do is set up 5 pictures, 5 sounds, and the mouse followers. The first thing that I want to do is go to my pseudocode. So let's open that up. And while that's opening up, I also want to get the image and font working in here. So I need my button maker because I want to make my buttons as my image. So I open up the button maker text file, and this is actually the #1 tool that you want to do. So when I look at this, I have public class. All this code goes underneath the public class. All this code goes underneath the public void init. All this code goes underneath the paint, and all this code. So let's go into our code. We have our idle game, and we have our, where'd it go? Oh, there it is, button maker. So we have my button maker, which let's put on this side, and my code on this side. So now what I want to do is make another button. So it has buttons on here already. Let's just ignore those buttons. So I'm just going to, so now what I want to do is I want to make a button. I want to now make a new button, so I'm going to go over to this and my pseudocode. What button do I want to make first? Let's make the wall button. So what I'm going to go here is I'm going to go edit, replace, and then I'm going to replace top right attack with wall button. Notice I'm naming it uniquely, so then when I change wall, I'm not changing this everything. It's just going to be wall button. So when I replace all, it goes through and changes every variable and every instance of this button, even the Boolean, to wall button. So that means every variable with this button has wall button inside the variable name. So now what I want to do is copy and paste my variables over into my public class. So underneath public class, the variables go there. Underneath init, which is right here, I set up my buttons. In Paint, I draw the buttons. So I go down to Paint. So inside here, I draw them, and so under mouse pressed, I need to copy this text inside here. And what this does is now when I compile and run it, I have a working button. So I can go open up this, and of course it doesn't show up. And it doesn't show up because I've already set up buffered graphics with this buffer graphics clear rect and g.draw image. So what I need to do is change all these g dots to buffer graphics dots. Otherwise I won't see it. And not the g.draw image because I need to draw the graphics. So now when I compile and run it, I have a working game. And when I click, it says I clicked in the rectangle and it draws it in a random location. If I click outside, it doesn't. It stays still until I click it. And it shows up in a random XY position with a set width length. So that is my wall button. Now this is a fill rect. I want it to be my wall button. So what I need to do is I need to go to my downloads, because I have the folder already made Trump wall. I need to keep this open. I want to copy this, and notice I'm copying the button. I'm not moving it, because I always want to keep the location of that in all of my pictures in one spot. I'm going to be going to my documents, and then the folder that I put the code in, which is 419, not 44. And I need to put the actual picture file, which is button.jpg, in here, because now when I open up the image and font, I need to copy this code into my idle game. So what I need to do is I need to copy this photo over here, and I want to go over here and go edit, replace, find, replace. I want to replace, what is it, photo with wall button picture. And I'm going to replace all, because now I renamed all the variable names and everything's going to work. So I could just copy this over into my public class. I copy this try catch into the init, which is basically right here. So I'm just going to replace this because I don't need this. If I wanted to add this in, I would copy these two lines right here to add in for another picture, because I only need one try catch. And then I need this g.draw image under my paint, which is right here. So instead of this fill rect and setting the color, I'm going to g.draw image, but I want to keep the color because I want to keep the text to be green. So now I'm doing, instead of g.draw image is the biggest mistake, make sure you change that to buffer graphics, and I'm drawing the wall button right there. However, these are static values. I don't want static values. What I want is my wall button X, wall button Y, wall button height, wall button length, because when I change these variables, it changes the values for the button as well. Otherwise, the pictures wouldn't work. Now, what I want to also do is, in my repaint, I want to say that I am going to take my, well, let's run it and see, sorry. Getting ahead of myself. So when we run this, now we have a nothing there because something wrong happened with my picture. So let's go in and take a look at what happened. What happened was I didn't change the file name from pumpkin to button. However, I don't think it's button, it is, oh, it is button. So it's button.jpg. If this isn't perfect, caps and everything, it won't work. So now when I compile and run it, it'll work, hopefully. Otherwise, I'll look like a fool. And boom, I have a little button. Yay, but that's really, really small. I can't even tell that it's a button. So what I need to do is go in here and increase this to, let's try 50. Compile and run it. And yay, now I can see that it's a button. However, that's too big. I want to half the size. So I'm going to go 25. And now what I want to do is, instead of it just going, when we play the game, I click on the button, it shows up in a random location. I want it to be a little bit harder. So I'm going to go and let's make this 20. But let's also go into the run right here and say, every second I want to increase this plus equals by 10. And if I do this for button width, I also want to do it for button height, copy and paste. And now when I compile and run it, look what happens. So now when I click it, it slowly increases in size, but it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It doesn't reset. So every second, this thing's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's going to be way too big at some point. Does everyone see that? So that what that means is, I want to make this difficult so that then every time I click the button, which is down here, not only do I change the X and Y position, but I also take my height and width, and let's take this and say, well, this is now divide by 2. So I half the size by 2, and now let's play it. So now I click it and it gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and it gets smaller, and if I keep on going, there we go, it gets really, really small. But now it's a game. Now this is challenging because the faster I click, the smaller it gets. Like there's no way I'm going to be able to click it that small size. FPS for the win, yo. Oh, dip. Ah, boom, headshot. Anyways, we played that way too long already. So that's actually a pretty fun thing. Now what I want to also do is, Not only do I want to make it so that it starts at a random XY location, but heck, go big or go home. I want to make it so that it moves. So to make a moving button, I want to go to my run right in here, and I want to say not only am I increasing my width and height by 10, but I also want to change the direction of my XY. However, to make something bounce, we have to take a look at this. If we have an image, which is a circle, and it's bouncing, when it hits this point right here, it needs to change direction. Which means when my Y plus height is greater than my height of the applet, I changed the way I add. So let's take a look at this. Inside here, I need two booleans. I need to go wall button, so boolean, wall button up, down, wall button left, right. And I'm just going to set these both to true as a starting value, which means they're both going down and to the right. Now, once I set this up, what I need to do is inside my run, I need to say, I need those variable names. If wall button down is true, that's my Y value, crap. If wall button up down is true, I want to, that means I'm going up. That means, so I should actually change this not to up down, but up, because if it's false, I go the other way. And the variable name then helps me know which direction I'm going in. So if I'm going up, that means I want to increase my YY. So I'm going to say plus plus. If I'm going left, I want to go minus minus. Ooh. If that's the case, I then also need to say, well, if wall button Y is less than 0, then I need to do two things. First thing I need to do is set wall button Y to be 0, so that it counteracts this statement. But I also want to make it, because I'm decreasing by this, I want to just bump it over into 10. Because I'm not going to realize I'm over 10. And I also want to, so it doesn't keep on bouncing on the left hand of the screen, I also want to negate wall button up equals not wall button up, which means I'm negating the sign of the Boolean false. So I have my minimum Y value. I also need to copy this and set up for my X value. So I'm just going to go and say X, X. Now I also need to do this for my max height. So if my wall button is greater than the width of my applet, which is dim width, dim height, but it's not just dim height, so my wall button Y is greater than my height of the applet minus, so the quantity, my height plus my wall button height, then that means that I want to set this, my Y value, to this minus 10, which means bump a little bit up inside. So I'm not going to bounce all the way to the edge of the applet. I'm going to do 10 short. And then I need to change my wall button up to negate the value. Now, because I have this for my Y, I also need to do this for my X, which I will give you this code, so don't worry about that. And so now when I compile and run this, hopefully this is going to work. But is it actually moving? It is. But it's just moving really, really slow. So to change that, what we can do is instead of adding 1, let's go plus equals 30. If I change this to 30, I need to change this to 30, 5, just in case. Because it needs to be bigger than the amount I'm changing by, so I don't get an infinite bounce. So there we go. But what we didn't take into consideration is we need to negate the amount of change that we're doing. So once I go all the way down, which I want to show you, it's also not moving to the left. Did everyone see that real quick? It moves up, but it doesn't go back down. So what we need to consider is if wall button, so otherwise I need an else. So if I'm going the other way, I want to say wall button equals wall button minus 30. And I need to do the same thing down here. Else wall button X plus 30. And let's make this, that's good enough. And there we go. However, we also want to make it so that it goes faster. To make a thing go faster, we need to go to the run command. And instead of doing sleep divided by 1,000, if I do sleep divided by 10, that means I'm going to update the applet 10 times per second. And now this is a hard game. And it bounces. And every time I click, it starts at a random XY. And then we also have a lose point, right? Once it gets so big. Yeah. But then I can shrink it, right? If I'm actually a decent clicker. So this is actually pretty decent, right? And we can have all sorts of modifiers to change. So instead of changing this by a static value, I can make it a variable. And that variable can change over time. So it starts up going slow, but then it gets really, really fast. But that's all up to you. So this divide by 10 means 10 times per second because there's 1,000 milliseconds in 1 second. So now I need sounds. So I'm going to open up the sounds class and let's implement sounds. So it has just what I need in this sound class. So I copy this over underneath my class file. I already have these two, so I just need the fence and da bomb. I don't want fence and da bomb. I got to hold on. I want to remove this. I want to go through here and go find, replace fence and da bomb with wall button sound. And I'm going to replace all. And now when I copy this over, I just need these single lines. And notice I'm putting all the wall button variables together for very specific reasons. Inside my init, I need to set that up. And inside my paint, I'm not going to put it inside the paint, but I'm going to put it inside where I click the button. I'm going to play a sound. So now I need to get a sound. Well, to get a sound, there is a website. Oh, here we go. Codebrain.com Java sound files, page 1. Here we go. Free. Can I get the sound files, please? Next. Oh, here we go. This is the website. Sweet. So let's put this on box real quick. Boom. CodeBrain. So we want a boom, maybe? And maybe an explosion. Here we go. So all these audio files will open up in VLC. There we go. So now I want to get this audio file. I'm going to go show in folder. I need to rename this. I'm going to go wall boom. And I'm going to cut this, and the first thing I'm going to do is put it inside my Trump wall folder where it has all my audio files, and I'm going to copy it and put it into my thing. But please realize the file name for this is not wallboom. It's wallboom.au because the AU format sound. So that means when I go into my code, I need to go to wall button sound. I'm going to just find it real quick and go previous value. I need, this is, what I do, wallboom.au. And now when I compile and run this, no whammy, no whammy, no whammy. An interesting thing happened here. Watch what happens. When I click this fast, the audio turns off. I don't know why. However, what I could do is, instead of just playing it, I could do loop. So now when I run the applet, it keeps on looping, and then I can put in a stop if I really want to. but I have to make another button. Stop also works. It stops the loop. But I just want to play it once, so I'm just going to do play. So now I have my audio button with a wall. However, now I don't have any money. I have a picture, I have a sound, I have a clicker, a button. I have one of each. Now I need to make some kind of currency. So every time I click my wall button, I need my monies. I'm going to call it int. I'm actually going to do long. America great. And it's going to start out with, $1 million, because that's what Trump started out with, right? That's just a small amount. So I'm going to say this plus, so plus equals 1. So every time I click the button, but now I need to also do a g.drawString. So I'm going to do you have blank, so plus America great, crap. America great plus space dollars, exclamation mark. And now what I need to do is I need to put that in XY. So I want to go, I want to center this. So I'm going to go, my X position is dim.width divided by 2 minus, what, 50? 25. And then my height is going to be just 30 because I want it on the top. When I run this, I have $1 million. I have $1,001. I have $1,002. So on and so forth. So that's the start of the game. Now realize, I just made one button. And now I need to make side buttons on the side. I also don't want to have the wall thing go the whole entire screen. And then it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. So with that, I think that's it. I think that's good enough for the movie. Have a good one. Good luck. You can basically repeat this movie to make any more buttons that you want to. If you want a static button, you just delete these 2 lines of code, then it doesn't move anymore. So I could do this. So then every time I click it, it doesn't move. But now every time I click, it's still following the pattern. So if I get it right, I could probably copy the pattern. It's going on the top left box. So you can go pretty small and you can get a lot more clicking. Now, if you wanted to follow that pattern, that's fine, because that might be the skill that you want to do. Repeat this however many times you want. Please realize this wall button clicked equals true. I set that to be true so that inside Paint, if it's true, I can do something. So if it's true, it puts up a string that I can do it. I don't see it, but it happens. But anyways, that's pretty much it. Good luck, and I will see you later.